2026 midterm election cycle is ramping up as our conflict in Iran is also ramping up. In the words of the church lady, how convenient. How convenient. So we will update you on the primaries first. Races that we were looking at in Texas specifically. Cornyn is a point and a half above Ken Paxton. That is going to a runoff. That has been the most expensive primary in Republican history. Over $100 million spent on this primary for Cornyn's seat. And again, we want Paxton. We want Paxton to win this primary. It doesn't look like he will. But we want Paxton to win this primary. He will be more easily defeatable by the Democrat who won their primary between Jasmine Crockett and James Talrico. Talrico won. I'm all about it. I love me some James Talrico. I think James Talrico can beat Ken Paxton. Can he beat Cornyn? I don't know. Tony Gonzalez, what can be said about this guy that hasn't already been said, but back of the envelope, had an affair with one of his staffers. He was married, staffer was married, both had kids. He dumped her. He blackballed her, shut her out. Shortly after that, she kills herself. When the details come out, the reporting comes out, he denies everything. Will that hurt him? It looks like it's going to hurt him. I told you how popular Brandon Herrera, his challenger, is. And Herrera is leading by just a little bit. And it looks like Herrera will defeat Tony Gonzalez. Looks like it hurt just enough. We're talking about a small margin. We're talking about the margin of like a point and a half or so. So it didn't hurt him that much, but it appears to have hurt him. I do want to mention this. The Democratic voters that turned out for the primaries in Texas was double the number of Republican voters that turned out for their primaries. Double. And they said flat out there was a Latino surge of voters in the Democratic primaries. That writing spells doom on the walls for Republicans. We're talking about, they're saying there was record turnout for Democrats in primaries in Texas. Record turnout. I mean, that is great news. Now, if we could only stiff arm all of his efforts to avoid a free and fair election, all the voter purging, all the soon-to-be allegations of voter fraud in multiple states, the stopping of elections, demanding hand ballots and hand counts, stopping mail from coming in post-date, even postmarked correctly, mailed in ballots not to be counted after Election Day. That executive order he signed for all of that, or he's going to sign, it's going to be challenged in court. I did scare the crap out of you, but know that there will be challenges to this in every state. So let's just wait and see what happens with this executive order. But of course, then there's the efforts in Iran. I mean, if this thing drags, and there are signs that this will result in American troops on the ground in Iran. American troops on the ground, a longer conflict than they have been telling us. There are signs, very definitive signs, that this could drag. Very definitive signs. But first, let's focus on Marco Rubio's lies. Like I said, some lies matter. The lies about why we are dragged into a conflict with Iran, they matter. They matter. Now, you know what he said before. We talked about it. We made sure we were oriented. We made sure we understood exactly what the lies they were telling us are and why. We proactively struck in a defensive way because we knew Israel couldn't wait. Israel was going to strike. So because Israel was going to strike, Iran was going to retaliate, and we couldn't allow American deaths and destruction due to an Iranian retaliation, so we struck first. That is the lie. Well, that lie took 24 hours to completely break down. Completely break down. He has massaged and adjusted his talking point based on what the president has said. Trump blew up the lie within 24 hours. Within 24 hours, he blew up the lie. So Marco is forced to readjust. We're going to get to what Trump said and what Marco said. Here's a little contrast. Now, this is the same reporter who asked the question both days, 24 hours apart. Listen to this.
Yesterday, you told us that Israel was going to strike Iran and that's why we needed to get involved. Today, the president said that Iran was going to get
Yeah, your statement is false. So that's not what I was asked very specifically. Were you there yesterday?
Yes, I asked the question.
And so the president made the very wise decision. We knew that there was going to be an Israeli action. We knew that that would precipitate an attack against American forces. And we knew that if we didn't preemptively go after them before they launched those attacks, we would suffer higher casualties and perhaps even higher those killed. And then we would all be here answering questions about why we knew that and didn't act.
Okay, so the same reporter who yesterday asked the question that elicited that response, proactive defensive measures, that same reporter asked him 24 hours later, do you stand by Israel forced your hand? No, that's not what I said. Were you there yesterday? Were you there yesterday when I answered the question? Yes, she was there because she's the one who asked it. He said, no. That's not what I said. You didn't see what you saw. You didn't hear what you heard. That's not what I said. Now what is he saying? The bottom line is this. The president determined we were not going to get hit first. It's that simple. Dropped the whole Israeli attack talking point. Dropped it. He said, it's that simple, guys. We're not going to put American troops in harm's way. If you tell the president of the United States that if we don't go first, we're going to have more people killed and more people injured, the president's going to go first. That's what he did. That's what the president will always do. No Israeli talking point this time. No Israeli talking point. He argued, he even went on to argue that, oh, well, we know that reporting has come out on Brett Breaks Things, that we've been planning this for months. I know Brett broke that. We saw the report. No, he didn't say that, but he did. He acknowledged the reporting that they have been planning this for months. He acknowledged that Israel has been eager to attack Iran. He acknowledged it. He said none of those reasons were why we did this. It's all false. It's not why we did this. Yeah, we know what was reported on. We heard. It's false. He said the president of the United States made a decision. This is intolerable. Iran cannot have these missiles, cannot have these drones, cannot threaten the world. Do you see how it's ballooned? Well, since our original lie that was more specific was hard to digest and then blown up by our president, we're going to balloon this into a more overarching, digestible lie. They just can't have this stuff. Boom. Just can't have it. We've decided what they have and what they're allowed to have. We've decided. And we've decided now's the time that we just can't stand for it. Completely changing the talking point. No Israeli talking point embedded anywhere in here. The president said, this is the weakest they've ever been. If we don't hit them now, a year from now, a year and a half from now, no one will be able to touch them, and they'll be able to do whatever they want, and he made the decision to go. Okay, now that right there, embedded in there, is a little bit of what U.S. intelligence officials, speaking anonymously, of course, told us that we talked about yesterday. They said actually some of the intelligence officials, some of the the CIA and some other officials felt now is actually the time to strike. Right after the protests, we've got everybody in the area, we've got Israel on board, the oil market is soft, now's the time. We really felt like we want them done. We want this regime over with, and now would be the optimal time. That's what the intelligence agents were telling us. So that's now what Rubio says was the president's thinking on this. What did the president say that blew up his original talking point? I'll play it for you. This is what the president said. Right after his Secretary of State goes in front of the world to justify war with Iran and says Israel was going to strike. That put pressure on us. We had to be prepared for the retaliation of Israel's strike. They forced our hand. This is what the president said right after that lie.
Mr. President, did Israel force your hand to launch these strikes against Iran? Did Netanyahu pull the United States into this war?
No, I might have forced their hand. You see, we were having negotiations with these lunatics, and it was my opinion that they were going to attack first. They were going to attack. If we didn't do it, they were going to attack first. I felt strongly about that. And we have great negotiators, great people that do this very successfully and have done it all their lives very successful. And based on the way the negotiation was going, I think they were going to attack first.
Okay, that's a lie. Let's stop his lies right there. Bottom line, he said it right there. I felt strongly, bigly, quickly. You know what's not strongly, bigly, and quickly? Admitting Israel forced Don to do anything. Especially bring his military into a conflict with Iran. That is not bigly, strongly, and quickly at all, being forced by Israel in any way. And that's what Rubio said happened. There's two ways to look at this. One, Don's ego absolutely couldn't handle it. Couldn't go on TV with the lie that they manufactured. And by the way, they should have stuck with this lie, because you could get Bibi on board with this lie. You could, brief Trump on the importance of the lie. The ball got dropped somewhere along the way, because the original lie, at least you could have gotten everybody on board with it, all the parts of the lie. You could tell Bibi, listen, Bibi, you gotta come out and say that we forced it. You gotta come out and say you were gonna attack with or without us because the negotiations were bull crap to begin with. You gotta say this, Bibi. And Bibi could have come out and said that. And then Trump could have come out and said, Bibi, he's too bigly, he's too strongly and quickly, and he was going to attack and force us. He could have done that. The first way of looking at it is his ego couldn't handle something like that. Too petulant, too indignant, too insecure, too stupid. The other way to look at it could be this. There is a large segment of MAGA that is anti-Israel, anti-money to Israel, anti-military support to Israel, anti-Israeli campaigns in the Middle East, anti-Israeli geopolitics in general. There is a large section of MAGA that feels that way. Is Don stupid like a fox? Does he have to clean up Rubio's mess within the base? Rubio comes out and says, well, Israel's too bigly, strongly, quickly. They forced us. Does Don realize, almost in real time, I cannot alienate my anti-Israeli base like that? That is a bad look. That is not bigly, strongly, quickly at all to them. And I got to clean it up. And there's large factions within that base. Tucker Carlson's, his main critique of President Trump all along has been too much support for Israel, too much pro-Israel policy. He visited the president 3 times leading up to this strike, trying to convince him to rein in Netanyahu and not be pressured. You got guys like Jack Prosabic coming out and saying there's a segment of the base that has become anti-Israel, and they view Rubio's comments as confirming their prior beliefs on how American foreign policy operates. There's no question that Rubio's comment set them off. So, why did Trump blow up the lie? Was it A, his ego couldn't handle it? He's a child. Or was it B, he had to clean up Rubio's mess amongst the base? Those are conversations that you want to be a fly on the wall for in the Oval Office or in Rubio's office. The telephone calls, the maneuvering. Why did Trump blow up that lie?
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things, pushing back, speaking up, and holding the line.
By the way, those of you who watch the show, you know how much I love Axios. And I just want to put this out there, man. I love Axios because a lot of times they come behind and they start verifying things that Scott and I kind of float or think, right? Stuff that I come out, and on the podcast and say, I feel like this is that or whatever. Axios is the one that comes in behind with the reporting. Their sources are second to none. And they came out with a report that did two things. One, it verified a lot of what we said. Okay, Axios spoke to 3 officials within the Trump administration that verified a few details that we have been putting out there on how this built up. And another thing that this Axios report did is it lent credence, it lent a little bit of truth to the original lie. They should have stuck with the original lie. Israel forced us. They should have stuck to that lie. And this Axios reporting, it leaves us with some details that point to just a little bit of truth in that lie. What details am I talking about? According to these 3 administration officials, Benjamin Netanyahu called Trump on February 23rd. February 23rd. Think about the timeline. We struck on the 28th. 5 days before the strike, Benjamin Netanyahu called Trump. At the exact same time, Witkoff and Kushner were meeting with Oman, Qatar, and the Iranians about a deal to avoid violence. Ben called to pressure Trump to strike. Talked about the Mossad and CIA reports, the intelligence reports about where Khomeini and his leadership will be. Talked about how the longer these negotiations go on, the worse your position will be. The more the Iranians give in, the worse your position will be. Just what we guessed. This February 23rd call from Bibi to Trump. The same day Bibi got in Trump's ear. The same day. Later that day, Witkoff and Kushner, they called Trump and they get in a conversation, and the official report from that phone call is, yeah, the Iranians are completely unreasonable. These talks are going nowhere, even though they were going somewhere. Even though the Iranians had started to give concessions and started to lower the amount of enrichment that they would enrich their uranium to, right? The number kept coming down. They were at 20%, but they were willing to bring it down, right? They were going somewhere. Oman said the talks were going somewhere. Qatar said the talks were going somewhere. But Witkoff and Kushner, all of a sudden, they're here to report these talks are pointless. They're going nowhere. The same day of that BB call. The same day. Thank you, Axios. Really appreciate that. Really appreciate that. According to the reporting within the administration, there was pressure from the Israelis. The original attack, the attack that wasn't going to happen and it was all a coincidence. We really attacked because we were going to get attacked first. The attack that had been in the planning for months. Well, that attack was originally planned for late March or April. We weren't going to do this till late March or April for a number of reasons. But Bibi in that phone call on the 23rd changed everything. We had to step up our timetable. What are the results of stepping up a timetable on an assault, on an attack? What are the results of this? What does it look like when you rush an attack? We're going to show you exactly what it looks like when you rush an attack. We're going to show you exactly what it looks like. Rubio and Huckabee, our ambassador to Israel, they're starting to have to answer tough questions about Americans stranded in the Middle East right now. Yep. State Department, Rubio, they're having to answer tough questions. There is a dire situation with Americans stranded in the Middle East right now. Dire situation with embassies closing across the region. The quote out of the State Department is, the U.S. government was working to charter flights for American citizens in the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, and Jordan, and seeking to help people stranded elsewhere book tickets on commercial flights. Okay. The State Department says it's working to help book tickets for Americans to fly out of these 3 countries and 11 others. Rubio said that almost 1,600 Americans were seeking help to leave the region and that the department was also identifying military flight options. Okay, so the talking point with 1,600 Americans in the region stranded, the talking point out of our State Department is we're helping book flights. The talking point out of Marco Rubio, we're identifying military flight options. Jonathan Karl, reporter, decided to play the part of someone stranded in the Middle East and tried to secure a flight out of the Middle East. Let's take a look at how this went for Jonathan Karl, okay?
Right. So Secretary of State Marco Rubio urged news organizations to put the 24/7 State Department emergency line out so that Americans who are stuck in the Middle East can get help getting out of the region, register their names and not. But listen to what happens when you dial the number.
Please do not rely on the U.S. government for assisted departure or evacuation at this time. There are currently no United States evacuation points. Please continue to check the embassy's website for updated information.
So,
in the event of ongoing...
The bottom line is, if you're looking for help, you're stuck in the Middle East, and you can't evacuate, there's no help yet from the United States government. You can call that number, you can go through the website, you can register your name so you might get updates later. But the number that the Secretary of State gave out, what it does for you is it tells you right now that there is no help from the United States government in getting out of the Middle East.
That's exactly right, Jonathan Karl. Despite what our State Department and our Secretary of State is telling us, officials are saying the opposite. They say it is not immediately clear when flights would become available. These are according to according to officials within the administration. I apologize. It was not immediately clear when the flights would become available or whether they would be arranged for Americans in any of the 14 countries we mentioned. Any of them. 14 countries, we have issued an urgent warning for Americans to leave, and we have absolutely no plan on how to get them flights out. That is the truth, regardless of what your government, the State Department, and Marco Rubio are telling you. Here's the best part. State Department did not respond to comments, to questions for comment, requests for comment. State Department, no comment. The Pentagon said, questions about the stranded Americans, we refer these questions to the White House. The White House said, no comment. Who is talking about this? Well, let's look at 2 U.S. officials, speaking anonymously, of course. Let's listen to 2 U.S. officials who they have access to sensitive information in the region regarding these Americans. They spoke to the Washington Post. They said that some military family members stationed in Bahrain have been flown to safety, and that it is possible the military will be asked to do more for the stranded Americans elsewhere in the coming days. But that no evacuation flights were imminent as of Tuesday morning. Trump, he took a question about why these Americans are stranded. Hey, Trump, what do you have to say about these stranded Americans? No flights out. What do you have to say?
Commercial air travel right now is severely restricted in the Middle East, and thousands of Americans are stranded. Why wasn't there an evacuation plan, and will you send planes to get people out?
Well, because it happened all very quickly. We thought, and I thought maybe more so than most, I could ask Marco, but I thought we were going to have a situation where we were going to be attacked. They were getting ready to attack Israel. They were getting ready to attack others. You're seeing that right now. And a lot of those missiles that are hitting in, those are stationary. Those were aimed there for a long period of time at these other countries. So I think I was right about that. We attacked first, and if we didn't, it could have been, you know, look, we're really decimating them. They're being decimated.
Okay. We get it. So Trump's making excuses. It happened too bigly, happened too quickly, happened too strongly. We couldn't get him out in time. Mike Huckabee, he's answering questions in Israel. He's saying, hey, maybe you could take a tourist bus to, Saudi Arabia. Then maybe fly out from there. Good luck. We'll see how it works out for you. Airspace has been closed across a number of countries. American citizens, they are deeply frustrated with the administration's response to their crisis. One, her name is Christine. That's the first name they gave. She's anonymous. She said the most difficult part is not the situation itself, but the absence of clarity, compounded by messages that only heighten fear without offering direction. She said she's been trying to secure a flight out of the country since the start of the war. It has been impossible. She said she considered leaving through Oman, but this route feels logistically impossible, overwhelming. Now, Rubio, he says it all starts by knowing that you're there. Americans have to register with us so they can be contacted as options open up. Okay, so now Rubio's blaming you. You didn't register with them. We don't know who you are, where you are. You got to register. Now, do it, and then we'll think about it. Ted Lieu, not going to get deep into the Democratic response on this particular issue, but we will hear from Ted Lieu, who responded to Rubio's comments of, you need to register with us. Ted Lieu responded directly to that. He said, on social media, he responded and asked why the State Department hadn't advised U.S. citizens in the region to register before Saturday's strikes. Why are you waiting till now, Rubio, to ask these people to register? Arguing that the Trump administration had made no secret of amassing military forces and equipment near Iran for weeks and weeks and weeks. Massive dereliction of duty, unacceptable lack of planning. Okay. There's one person who's willing to defend Rubio and Trump's strategy on this. It's the stark, honest truth out of a retired U.S. military officer who has experience with evacuations in the past. This is what this officer said. He said that such missions are complex under optimal circumstances and grow even more challenging when departures are limited by a desire to preserve the element of surprise. It's the strongest signal you can send that there's about to be a fight when you start ordering your own citizens to leave. Two things I got a problem with that. One, your element of surprise was blown when Witkoff and Kushner said we're not negotiating, and we had the USS Ronald Reagan and Gerald Ford at your doorstep. Forget the element of surprise already. And two, he's flat out telling you your lives are not worth the element of surprise. We would much rather kill you patriots and keep our surprise.
We'll be back to break it all down. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, where the truth hits harder than the headlines.
This is as serious as it gets. This is war and peace. They told us in that room that there are going to be more Americans that are going to die, that they are not in the short run going to be able to stop these drones that are going to continue to fly into the Middle East. We have to have a debate in the United States Senate on an authorization of military force. It will likely fail. And we shouldn't be voting to proceed to other pieces of legislation until we get a debate on this deeply unpopular, immoral, and illegal war with Iran.
Okay, what is Chris Murphy there talking about? What's Chris Murphy talking about? He's talking about Pete Hegseth, John Ratcliffe, Dan Kane, and Marco Rubio all went and Tuesday afternoon, they spoke to the Senate. Tuesday night, they spoke to the House. Leaders in the Senate, leaders in the House, leaders of committees that this concerns, he spoke to them. Democrats are not happy. They are not happy. They left the meeting more unhappy than they were going into it. And of course, Republicans defended this crap. But Chris Murphy saying this war power resolution, we're going forward with this. It's full steam ahead on this war power resolution, which I told you is completely symbolic. Completely symbolic. Do not get excited about this war powers resolution. If it should pass the House, then it has to pass the Senate. We have to peel off 5 senators to get this through the Senate. If it should pass the Senate, it goes to whose office? It goes to whose desk? Trump's, for a fresh veto. 2/3 in the House and 2/3 in the Senate is necessary to override a presidential veto. It will never happen. Don't get excited about it. Boom. We're not going to talk a ton about the resolution. Let's rather talk about the Democrats' response to what they heard in this briefing from Hegseth, Kaine, Ratcliffe, and Rubio. What did these 4 idiots tell them? Well, they couldn't get into too many details due to classification, right? Due to classified information, stuff like that. But they can give you their reaction to what they heard, and they did just that. Gabe Vasquez out of New Mexico, Democrat from New Mexico, said his thinking was not at all changed by the briefing and that he will be supporting the resolution. Dave Min, Democrat out of California, he had a few things to say. He said they're coming in and bull bleeping us just like they did with Venezuela. And Jim Acosta of California said coming out of that briefing, he supports both measures, all the measures, every measure to stop this, to rein in Trump's power. What did the Republicans say? We're not going to hear. What did the Republicans say? Yeah, we're not going to hear a ton from the Republicans, okay? We're not going to hear a ton from the Republicans. But I will tell you what Dusty Johnson, Republican out of South Dakota, said, and this is kind of indicative of what they all said. He said, Republican, Dusty, said, it was one of the most productive briefings I've ever been a part of. I think they eased a lot of concerns. Awesome. Awesome. Crap like that, quotes like that, positioning like that is why the war power resolution is dead on arrival. DOA. Dead on arrival. Dave Min took it a step further. The Democrat out of California. He said when the Republicans came up to ask questions, they just wanted to kiss Donald Trump's ass and kiss Pete Hegseth's ass. They stonewalled on Democratic questions and just said, nope, that's not true. One GOP question seemed like it came straight from the Oval Office itself. Jared Huffman said, he's another Democrat out of California. He said, yeah, there was some bull bleep involved, some editorializing, and a lot of, frankly, questions from Republicans that are just cheerleading speeches. And you know who else is out here defending Donald Trump, Marco Rubio, Pete Hegseth? You know who else is out here defending? Double Agent Fetterman. Man, this guy duped us. He duped us good. Listen to this jackass, this double agent. Listen to this guy.
Why should Congress assert its constitutional role and actually vote to declare war the way it did with Iraq and Afghanistan?
The last war we've actually declared was World War II.
No, Iraq and Afghanistan, the AUMF.
Afghanistan. Okay, so for me right now, what is it now? The War Powers Resolution, 60 days, and we're 100 hours into this. Now, what's at this point? And also, I want to say on this, it's like, we can't keep our government open. We've shut it.
There it is. There it is. Take your unpopular position on this and spin it into some bullcrap about the shutdown. Yeah, he's right about one thing. There is still a DHS shutdown. That is relevant. Very relevant right now. We'll have time to get there. By the way, we played those 2 Lindsey clips talking about Cuba's next, and I've never admired Trump more than I have right now. Tim Burchett came out and responded to what Lindsey Graham was saying, and I thought this was funny. What do you have to say about Lindsey Graham's comments, Tim Burchett?
Senator Lindsey Graham is now calling for the U.S. to start bombing Lebanon in response to the Hezbollah IDF action.
Lindsey hadn't seen a fist fight he hasn't wanted to turn into a bombing raid, so I just tell you with a grain of salt, dude. Yes, ma'am.
Lindsey hasn't seen a fist fight that he doesn't want to turn into a bombing raid. Amazing. There's a bunch of people giving good speak on this, giving good talk, giving good mic on this. We'll play some more, but I want to get into the meat and potatoes. I want to get into the meat and potatoes of this. I want to get into what we really need to be paying attention to. How this whole attack is going to come together and what we are going to see going forward. I mentioned yesterday that some of the Iranian strikes were in Iraq. Specifically, some Kurdish forces on their western border. As I talk about this, I want you to keep in mind, maybe open up a map on your computer. A lot of you do know the geography of the region, but just keep in mind, it goes Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran. Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran. Like that across. Iraq is right on the western border of Iran. On the border of Iraq and Iran, on the border are thousands of Kurdish troops. Thousands of Kurdish troops. There are millions, a couple dozen plus Kurdish people in that region along Iraq, Syria, and into Turkey. Right out there on all of their northern border, there are a few dozen million Kurdish people in there. But positioned right along the side of Iran are thousands of Kurdish militia groups. Oh, you got a map for me, Scott? Oh, awesome. All right. You see that map? Thank you, Scott. We're talking about that section on the border of Iraq and Iran, right there. Okay, there's the map of the region right there, from west to east. We are now focused on those Kurds. Once again, we are going to attempt to lean on the Kurds, or, if you'd rather, use them. After abandoning them time and time again, after indirectly contributing to the deaths of millions of Kurds through abandonment, policy shifting, as governments shift, our allegiance to the Kurds shift, we have abandoned them a number of times. And here we go again. We have our own proxies once again. That's what's hot in the streets right now. Proxies, right? Everybody's got to have a proxy. You're not anyone if you don't have a few strong proxies, right? Well, here we go. We are attempting to use the Kurds as our proxies once again. Now we're talking about some of these groups. Who are the bigger groups? Okay, now these groups, they have signaled that we're ready to go in. With U.S. help, without U.S. help, we're about to cause trouble inside Iran. Okay? Anti-Iranian government Kurdish groups, militias, parties. They said, we're ready. We're ready to jump. And the U.S. is ready to seize upon this. The groups we're talking about, some of the bigger ones, the PJAK, the Kurdistan Free Life Party, the PAK, the Kurdistan Freedom Party, and the KDPI, the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan. That group in particular has the president's favor. They're the first ones we talked about. And why do I say the president? Because the president himself, Donald Trump, has contacted the Democratic Party of Iranian Kurdistan president, Mustafa Hijiri. Okay, he runs the KDPI, and Trump called him personally. Now, here's the thing. This is going to get messy, but we like to disseminate this stuff here. We like to get in the weeds. We like to know exactly how this is going to play out, the important parts and pieces, and this is a huge piece. This is a huge piece of their plan going forward. The post-Khomeini, the post-Ali Khomeini regime. This is a huge piece in shaping it, suppressing it, standing in the way of it, attacking it, whatever they decide. And their plan is starting to form. It's starting to form. The U.S.'s plan, post-Khomeini, is starting to form. But this is complicated. One of the complicated issues is the prominent militia leaders amongst these Kurdistan forces. They have said, we fully expect U.S. and Israeli forces to help in any measure, any way, when we attack inside Iran. We expect their help. We expect them to support us. That's one thing. Okay, they all say this is our big chance. This is our big chance to topple this murderous regime and change Iran forever. That's what the Kurdistan forces feel. That is how they feel about this. But they expect U.S. help. Also, the U.S. has been in contact with Iraqi Kurdish leaders. The leaders in Iraq that are Kurdish in that region, they have been contacted by the U.S. as well. Why? Because if the U.S. is to make any deal, and they are talking deal, they are talking munitions, weapons, supplies, logistics, intelligence reports. We're talking the whole shebang-a-bang that we're prepared to provide to these Kurdistan forces, these Kurds. If we're going to do any of that, we're going to need Iraq's okay. We're going to need to deal with the militia forces that the Iraqi Kurdish forces, the ones in charge in the region, they approve of. If not, we will not be able to transit weapons, munitions, supplies. We won't be able to do it without their okay. So Iraq needs to get on board as well, and we're already doing that. One person familiar with the discussions amongst these people said the idea would be for the Kurdish armed forces to take on the Iranian security forces and pin them down to make it easier for unarmed Iranians in the major cities to turn out without getting massacred again as they were during the protests. Okay, so a plan is forming to use the Kurds. There are problems with this plan, though.
Breaking politics, breaking narratives, breaking news. But first, we need a coffee break. Breaking news, breaking rules, breaking through. Back to Brett Breaks Things.
I just left a classified briefing on Iran, and it only confirmed what we already knew. Donald Trump is waging an illegal war, and he has no plan to end it. Today, he said we attacked Iran because he had a feeling. But we know the truth. Trump is lying about Iran's nuclear capacity. He's lying about Iran's missile capabilities. And he's dragging the United States into another endless war in the Middle East. Trump is completely out of control. And Americans have already lost their lives because of his lies. The war in Iran must end now.
Okay. That's Ed Markey. And he's saying what these reports are pointing to, which is that this is going to go on longer. This is going to go on longer. The problem with using the Kurds, once again, there's a few of them. We want the Kurds as our proxies to attack Western Iran and move in. Possibly hold the northwestern part of the country, create a buffer zone. Maybe farther. We want to use them again, but there are problems. One, I just said it. They say we fully expect U.S. and Israeli forces to support our efforts inside Iran. We're talking boots on the ground. And officials and experts in the region are saying, if we have to go that route, we will have to go all the way in. An extensive effort to support this uprising, this overthrow, using the Kurds. We can't just dip our toe. We have to go all the way in. That could get messy. That could go long. U.S. troops on the ground in Iran. And some people are already saying it.
I just want to say I am more fearful than ever after this briefing that we may be putting boots on the ground and that troops from the United States may be necessary to accomplish objectives that the administration seems to have. But I also am no more clear on what the priorities are going to be of the administration going forward, whether it is destroying the nuclear capacity of Iran or simply the missiles or regime change or stopping terrorist activities. And I think the administration owes it to the American people to have briefings not just for members of Congress but for the American public. Nothing here should have been classified. It should be available to the American people.
Do they describe...
Okay, so we are ripping right from that briefing reports that detail the objectives that Richard Blumenthal just told us about. He's saying boots on the ground to fully complete the American objective. And I'm telling you right now, the American objective is to overthrow the current regime. We talked about the different options that were reported on from that February 18th meeting with J.D. Vance, Hegseth, Susie Wiles, and Trump, where they talked about the options post-Khomeini. One, we allow them to elect the next supreme leader. Could be his son. Two, we back revolutionary forces. We back an uprising and hope to look to some of the Iranian supreme leadership's opposition, like Ahmadinejad or the Shah's son. Or three, we lean on the IRGC, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. We lean on them. We allow them to take over. That would be at least some infrastructure. We allow them to keep pumping oil. We don't decimate them. Maybe they can gain control of the country. Those were the options they seriously discussed. Well, I'm telling you right now, they didn't go with three. They didn't go with three. We know that. It looks like they went with two. Why not one? We'll talk about it. It looks like they went with two. This is option B. Option number two they talked about. Back an uprising. Overthrow the regime completely. Looks like they went with two. More problems with this. There are more problems with using the Kurds for their uprising. Intelligence assessments out of the U.S. for years have said these Kurdish forces in Iran, they do not have the power, the experience, or the influence to successfully lead an uprising within Tehran. They just can't get there. It would be a much bigger lift on our part than it would be theirs. That will get messy. That will require boots on the ground. Also, another problem. These different factions, these Iranian Kurds, these anti-Iranian Kurdish forces on the border, there's many of them, and their history is littered with tension, aggression, fights amongst themselves, ideological differences. There's different options here, right? First, you take a look back and you say, okay, which forces do we want to work with? Now you're risking alienating the ones you haven't chosen to give money, weapons, and logistics to. Or maybe you decide, we'll pick one major faction and we'll back them all the way, like the KDPI. We'll pick them. They will immediately be target number one for these other factions who are left out in the dark. How can you rely on any of the other people you spurned? You said weren't good enough for whatever reason. This gets messy. How many of these forces do you back? Which forces do you back? How do you disperse this aid? And there's another big problem. These major Kurdish forces, they're asking for political assurances from Trump in these talks. Political assurances that we have gone back on, turned our back on a number of times. We have given them political assurances in the past, and it ends up with thousands, if not millions, of Kurds being killed. We betrayed them in Syria. When the new Syrian government came in and said, we don't want the Kurds here, we turned our back on them. We betrayed them in Iraq, and we betrayed them in Turkey when that government began just killing, just murdering, massacring thousands of Kurds. We turned our back on them. We didn't stop Erdogan at all. We have betrayed them time and time again. And now they're asking for political assurances that we have betrayed in the past. And Trump isn't currently giving. That's a big problem. That's a number of big problems using this proxy. I know it'd be fun to have a new brand spanking new shiny proxy of your own, Don. I know. It sounds exciting. But there's problems. They want to use the Kurds to lead an uprising in Iran. That's the option they went with. 2, the uprising. We know, we can assume they didn't go with 1 because they killed all of the supreme leadership structure. They killed them all. We know that they didn't go with 3 because they are laying the groundwork for the uprising by decimating the Revolutionary Guard Corps, okay? The IRGC, the Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the Basij militia. Those are the 2 main military factions that propped up the supreme leadership in Iran. The IRGC and the Basij. Keep those in mind. And how do I know we didn't go with option 3? Option C? How do I know that? Because when we struck, and as we continue to strike, we are laying the groundwork for the uprising with these strikes. Israel, they struck the Basij leadership and command structure. The main people and main outposts of Basij have been struck. The U.S., we went after the IRGC. We started with their headquarters in Tehran, and we've been bombing IRGC headquarters and military, options nonstop since this began. The IRGC and the Basij are getting struck, hit hard by us. Why? Why those 2? Because they are the ones responsible for suppressing the protests. They are the boot on the neck of the Iranian people. They are the boot. They have been for years. During those protests, they arrested mass people at once. Just put over your head, zip tie, get in the back. Mass arrests, suppressed rallies, fired into crowds, just fired willy-nilly into crowds and killed thousands of protesters. That was them. That was the IRGC. That was the Basij. They want to dismantle the oppressive structure of Iran to soften for an uprising. Look, Iranians. Look, Kurdish Iranians. Look, we are killing, decimating the people who oppressed you. We killed the leader, killed the 49 leaders of the supreme leadership, and now we are absolutely decimating the IRGC and the Basij. We're decimating them. The time is now. The time is now. Rise up, Iranians. Take your country back. If Ahmadinejad is still alive, maybe you want him. If the Shah's son is amenable, and he's signaled that he is, maybe he can move in. We can work with them. We've worked with Ahmadinejad in the past. The Shah's family, we were very cozy with the former Shah. Very cozy. Rise up. The fact that they're right now conducting negotiations with these Kurdish militia forces, and the fact that Americans were absolutely stranded, lets you know that absolutely Bibi pressured us to move up the timetable. We were not completely ready for these strikes, and there are other signs. There are other signs that Hegseth and Rubio were not prepared for this. We're coming back for overtime.
It's time for a quick break, then we break some more. You're listening to Brett Breaks Things. You're back with Brett Breaks Things, because silence isn't an option.
Okay, we're in overtime. Man, so much to bring you today. How else do we know that they were not actually prepared? How else do we know that that February 23rd phone call from Bibi Netanyahu to Donald Trump stepped up the timeline, stepped it up to a place that Trump and Hegseth and Rubio were not comfortable with? How else do we know, other than the stranded Americans, other than the ongoing, right now, urgent negotiations with these Kurdish forces? How else do we know? We have been talking about this munitions problem for the last few days. And this is going to come to a head. And this is also why we're going to have boots on the ground one way or another. Because the little dance that we're doing right now, knocking down all of these drones, this dance is going to come to an end one way or another. One way or another. Iran has been just sending waves of Shahed 136 one-way attack drones at us. Shahed 136s. Those are the attack drones we have been inundated with. And it is depleting our stockpile across the Middle East. We have batteries, defensive missile batteries set up all over the Middle East. The UAE, Qatar, all sorts of places. And they're all running low. They're all running low. Now, it's not all bad news. We have stopped over 90% of these drones with our Patriot missile batteries and our defensive missile batteries, the THAADs and some of the Tomahawks. We have stopped 90+% of incoming drone attacks. They have been wildly successful. Wildly successful. But there's another problem here. Other than we're running out of them, other than that, the other problem is these Shahed 136s, they cost $20,000 for Iran and Russia to produce. That's who's producing them. Iran and Russia. They cost $20,000. The Patriot missiles alone that we are shooting to knock them down are $4 million apiece. Don, I know you're a beautiful mind. I know. You're a whiz with numbers, bud. But those numbers don't work out. Those numbers do not work out at all. At all. I'll tell you some more numbers that don't work out. I'm gonna bring you some numbers on this that just don't work out. Qatar, they'll be done in a couple days. They'll be out of defensive missile batteries, the missiles to fire out of these defensive batteries. They're going to be out in a couple days. It looks like we're going to be out in maybe a couple weeks. We don't know just yet. A couple weeks maybe we'll be out. Now, Qatar has to come out and lie about this. And I get it. This is the lie you tell. You cannot come out and confirm what the enemy would love to hear, which is we're just about out of defensive missile batteries. You can't do that. You can't come out and say that in war. So this lie, I get. This is out of Qatar's International Media Office. They said, the inventory of Patriot interceptor missiles held by Qatar armed forces has not been depleted and remains well stocked. I get it. I understand. That's the lie you tell in that spot. Okay, no problem. I have no problem with that. But the facts are what they are, no matter what you say. And they're not going to stop. They're not going to stop launching these Shahed 136s. Let me tell you why. And this is where the math is really starting to get dicey for us. This is the meat and potatoes right here that is going to force American troops on the ground. Russia and Iran have been producing a few hundred Shaheds a day for weeks. We don't know exactly how many Russia has provided Iran, and we don't know how many Iran itself has produced exactly, but it's estimated possibly over 10,000 or more Shahed drones. Aside from those the Shahed drones, Iran has major ballistic missiles, around 2,000 much more destructive ballistic missiles. What they're doing now, and how the math works out for Iran, but not us, is they are going to continue wave after wave after wave of Shaheds until we are absolutely out of defensive missiles, out of THAADs, out of Tomahawks, out of Patriots. And when we're out, and when our allies are out, then they will send their big boys. Then you will see the death count on our side reach extreme proportions. In the UAE, in Israel, Qatar, Oman, Iraq. I know how I'm saying these weird, but I'm trying to get on board with saying them properly, and somehow it's coming out like I'm trying to be like condescending, and I'm not doing it on purpose. It's the only way I can keep these stupid names straight and how to say them properly. I'm sorry. Scotty, there's been discussions about it. Okay. So That's the plan. That's the plan. Inundate us with an endless wave of Shahed 136s till we're completely out of defensive missiles, and then hit everybody with the big boys. If I know this, and Iran knows this, that means Don knows this, and Pete knows this, and Marco knows this. Those psychopaths are about to be pushed into a corner. How far will those gentlemen go to not look weak at all in this conflict? How weak will it look to absolutely run out of missiles? That is not bigly, strongly, or quickly. Nope, not at all. What will they do? What will they do when backed into that corner? I'll let your mind wander for a second. Don came out and told the same lie that the Qatar international media told. Well, hear Don's lie on it real quick, and I understand this lie. Again, I get this lie.
You know, when I give away ammunition, everybody pays for it. The European Union's paying for it. Then they can do what they want with it, but they are giving it, let's say, to Ukraine, and it's okay. But we gave away a lot of high-end, but we have plenty. But we have unlimited middle and upper ammunition, which is really what we're using in this war. And we have really an unlimited supply. We also have a lot of the very high-end stored in different countries throughout the world. We're literally storing it there, which is actually something that I insisted on in my first term. I rebuilt.
Then he goes on, goes on to break his arm, patting his own back. Unlimited supply. I'm so smart. I'm so bigly. I have these stockpiles. We won't run out. Yes, we will. So one thing they will do in response to this ammunition crisis is lie. We knew that. What else will they do in response to this crisis? They will call all of the heads of the biggest defense contractors together at the White House. That is exactly what they're doing. Let's see. What day are they doing that? I think it's today. I think they meet today. They either meet today or tomorrow, and I apologize for that. Today or tomorrow, the Trump administration is going to meet with the heads of Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, other key suppliers of missiles in this country, and he is going to pressure them because he is desperate. He is desperate. These missile batteries have been used in Ukraine. They've been used in Gaza. They've been used against the Houthis. They've been used and used and used and used. And we've been buying up everything these boys have to produce. And Trump is going to call them into the White House to pressure them. He is going to pressure them. He's going to pressure them to come up with more quicker. More quicker. Those two things specifically. None of them are going to comment on it. None of them are commenting on the meeting, the White House, Raytheon, Lockheed Martin. None of them are commenting on it right now. But I do want to bring to your attention, there is a bit of a stick factor here. Very little carrot, much more stick. And that's kind of Trump's style. Because he signed an executive order in January that is aimed to identify contractors deemed to be underperforming by this administration. That's right. An executive order to pressure these guys right here. And he's going to lean on this executive order right now. Right now. The Pentagon is expected to release a list of these contractors that they are saying is underperforming. Not yet. We're going to give you a list real soon. First, we're going to wait to see what these guys have to say at this meeting. And if I get any pushback, so help me God, we get any pushback, you will be deemed to be underperforming by the U.S. government. And once they are deemed, if they should end up on this list, they will have 15 days to submit this plan to the administration on how they intend to improve production and get production boosted to a point that's very favorable for the American government and the military. And if they don't, the government can pursue enforcement actions, including contracting all or terminating all of their contracts. That's how the Trump administration gets down. We're going to call in these heads of companies who we desperately need to overexert themselves and produce missiles right damn now. We need them to do this. We need them. And how do we convince them? By threatening them. That's how Trump does it. Just like Claude AI. Just like Claude, which, by the way, Anthropic's Claude AI is being used across this whole conflict. Every aspect, all the strategy, all the scenario, intelligence gathering, intelligence dissemination, all of it is being used by Claude AI. And how did Hegseth convince Anthropic's Dario Amati to get on board with his philosophy on how Claude should be used? By threatening him. You're a supply chain risk. You're a classified information leak and a supply chain risk. That's how they convince these people that they need, that they are absolutely leaning on for their geopolitical ambitions. You threaten them publicly. Unbelievable. Speaking of weapons, we're unveiling a whole bunch of new weapons in this war. The new Lucas attack drones have been unveiled. The precision strike missiles, or the PRSMs, are newly unveiled. They have been successful, according to reports. If they weren't successful, I don't think we'd hear about it. And also this weird talk of a gravity bomb out of Pete Hegseth. A gravity bomb. I don't know anything about gravity bombs. I don't work in DARPA. I don't know what he's talking about. Hope to God we don't all find out what he's talking about. But what he's talking about, along with backing a Kurdish uprising, what he's talking about is something further than what we've discussed now. You might use a gravity bomb to soften up targets for an invasion. We're going to need an invasion force. That's what we're going to get the Kurds for. But the Kurds aren't ready to handle this. They will need us to assist them. We will need boots on the ground to complete our objectives if our missile batteries run out of ammunition. And we won't wait for that last defensive missile to fire. Oops, we're out. We will have to move before that happens. And then this gets dirty. Then this gets ugly. Then this gets muddy and drags on to the endless war that Ed Markey is referring to. This little missile situation is going to come to a head, and it will require us to be involved more than we had previously planned for. Period. Boots on the ground, and then some. This will all be developing over the next few days. Let's wait and see how this meeting with these defense contractors go and how amenable they are to Trump's threats. And I will see you kids tomorrow.